Today we have the verses 26, 27, 28 and 29 lined up for us. And I will start with verse number 26. I will chant. Mukta sango nahanvadi dhrityutsaha samanvitah siddhaya siddhayo nivirvikarah karta satvik uchyate. So now, after covering knowledge, karma, we now move on to the karta, the actor. And so this verse is talking about the sattvic actor. So it translates to free from attachment, not egoistic, endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, unaffected by success and failure. Such an actor is called sattvic. Word by word, mukta sang. So, mukt of attachment or free from attachment. Anahangvadi is not egoistic. Dhriti is firmness, steadfastness. Utsaha is enthusiastic or with enthusiasm. Samanvit is endowed with. Siddhya, siddhyo. So, siddhi is what you attain or success, and asiddhi is what you don't attain or failure. So, siddhya, siddhyo becomes in success and failure. Nirvikar is one that is not changing, steady. Karta, actor. Satvik, the gun satvik. Uchyate is called. So, and free from attachment, not egoistic, endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, unaffected by success and failure, such an actor is called satvik. So, let's chant it together. Mukta sango nahanvadi dhrityutsaha samanvita siddhaya siddhayo nirvikara
karta satvik uchyate.
uchyate. So, after explaining our the threefold categorization of gyan, knowledge, karma, action, Lord Krishna now starts talking about the threefold classification of the karta. And where are we coming from? I'm setting the context that in the 18th verse of this chapter, we had talked about the knowledge, known and knower as the threefold impulses to action, and the instrument, action, and actor were the threefold components of action. And then in the next verse, verse number 19, Lord had said that knowledge, action, and actor are also said to be threefold according to the distinction of the gunas, right? So, karta, what we are going to take up in the next set of three verses, is also a constituent of action. And the karta in us is actually nothing but the doership uh, that all of us have. And why are we different kinds of doers? That is because of the differences in our vasanas. And so, therefore, even though the matter and spirit is the same in all of us, in each one of us, because of our vasanas, when we function and move in the world, we appear to be different because we are working from the levels of our inherent tendencies. And also, in the same individual, uh, these the how we act varies. So as we had discussed last time, that sometimes when we are in a foul mood, then the our equanimity is gone. We react very differently. We react in a tamasic or rajasic and maybe even a tamasic way. I mean, though inherently we are sattvic, but something triggers us off. So in the same individual also, these the content are vasana content or the sattvic, rajasic, tamasic content that varies. The vasanas actually remain the same. The content varies at times. So what we are talking about is how the actor in us or the karta in us can be classified into sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. So when we are observing ourselves, we should know under which category or which mood are we functioning in. So the root of action, as we have discussed, is our vasanas, inherent tendencies, nature, aptitude, urge. And the chronology of action is that these root of action or the vasanas generate those thoughts in us which lead to commensurate desires and action to fulfill that desire. Now, what is important is that knowledge and discrimination is essential to make the right choice. So, when we are talking of sattvic action, if you recollect verse number 23, we had talked of the sattvic action actually per se, the purest type of three actions, which was performing the obligatory action. So the root of the sattvic action was actually coming from the sattvic gyan, which saw oneness in the underlying universe, which was the previous set of three verses where we had started with the sattvic gyan in verse number 20. So sattvic karta performs sattvic actions when motivated by the sattvic knowledge. And the verse is listing the qualities of a sattvic karta. So when I was translating, when we were reading the translation, free from attachment, not egoistic, endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, unaffected by success and failure, did these qualities ring a bell in us? We have discussed these earlier. Anyone recollects where we discussed these?
Lots of time. I think sthit pragnya.
Yeah, that was chapter 2, right? Then, when we were talking, when we did the Bhakti Yoga,
A true bhakt has quality.
yeah, the qualities of the Bhakta,
Hmm.
and
A true knower
then
also.
then the Jnani in
Hmm.
Kshetragya Vibhag Yoga. So, Bhakti is different. So, I would like to, Sthit Pragna is a good identification. And then we will move to the verses. I mean, you can always check out the verses 8 to 12, where we had discussed the 20 qualities of a Jnani in chapter 13. So, you will find a similarity. So, the content actually remains more or less the same. Um, with respect to different aspects of our personality, right? So the first point, the first word that is used is mukta sang, or free or liberated from all attachments. So for a jnani, we had used the word asakti or non-attachment, and for a bhakta, we had used the word sang vivarjita, so removed from attachments. So almost synonyms in different aspects. Now, what is attachment? Attachment, as we have been repeatedly saying, arises from the level of the mind, from our likes and dislikes. So we continue doing what we like to do, and what we don't like to do, we discontinue very fast. So attachment arises from the level of the mind and not at the level of the intellect. It's not discriminative. Mind is not discriminative. It functions on desires and likes and dislikes. So the mind indiscriminately follows the sense organs and past experiences and gets attached to the world based on what has been experienced. Consequently, if we function at the level of the mind, we start getting attached to objects and beings of the world. So you love someone, you dislike someone, you like mangoes, you don't like ghia, those kind of things happen. Now, in short, attachment is emotional bondage resulting from unintelligent preferential relationship with the object of attachment. So with which we develop an attachment, it's an emotional bondage and unintelligent preferential relationship. So all of us have, are attached to our children, spouse, home, work, business. These are the areas where the mind very easily becomes attached, and we linger, our mind lingers on them. Also, when we act in a preferential manner, or in an attached manner, we expect returns from the object. So if you do something for your spouse, you expect something in return. For children, you expect something in return. Now, when these expectations are not met, it leads to agitation. The verse is talking about liberation from attachments or detachment. Now, detachment arises from actually attachment. So, what we have to do is that shift our mind, uh, whatever we are attached to, shift it to a higher object of attachment, because somewhere the mind will go and get attached, because and that is what will drive our personality towards that goal, right? And of course, the ultimate attachment which is allowed by the scriptures is the self, that Paramatman. Now, what happens is when we attach ourselves to the higher, we automatically become detached from the lower. So that detachment has come. Just as in those examples that we took in the earlier chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, that the toddler's toy, when the child is a toddler, will grasp them frantically, but and will not leave it. If you're trying to remove a rattle, let's say the toddler's favorite rattle, will not let go. But as the child grows, automatically these objects are left. Same thing happens when new discoveries are made. We let go of the old discoveries. And you see it around, I mean, in so many examples around us. For example, music. You remember those days when we used to have the radio, which gave way to a tape recorder, which gave way to something else. And now you don't even have any device. It's on your mobile, it's on your laptop, which you link to a speaker. So how life has changed. And we don't stick on to that, you know, the music as it was, let's say, 50 years ago, unless it's a museum piece, so you say that this is what the radios in the 1970s or 60s looked like. Same thing for phones, computers. So when we move to a higher invention, a sleeker invention, we automatically let go of the old one. These days, you have to keep yourself updated even with the software. So you have to let go of things. And a mobile these days, I think, is old, in at best a 2 years time frame. So a sattvic karta is not bound by preferences or prejudice, and we have does obligatory action without attachment, just as a nurse does his or her duty in the hospital, a teacher does his or her duty towards students in the school, an actor performs on the stage. They don't carry the baggage back with them. So this was the first word, muk sang, mukt sang. Then we come to anahamvadi, or absence of ego, or without I-ness, or egoless. So for Gyani, you can look up the verses that I had mentioned. Anahankar was used, and for a bhakta, nirahankar was used. Similar synonyms. So we are talking of anahamvadi. So without ego. What is ahamvadi? Is when we have I-ness or ego, which is reflected in, we think we are the most important person, and we are the most talented. There's no one better than me. And also the entire creation is there for catering to me, and I am the doer.
Nirmama, nirmoha, those three words we had used earlier.
Yeah. So if you go back to those chapters, that's why I'm trying to link up a lot, here, because we've read this. This chapter is actually an executive summary, and most of the aspects have already been covered. It's just a different way of presenting, so that it stays with us as we are closing the Bhagavad Gita. We are coming to the end of the Bhagavad Gita. So the last point in the Ahamvadi thing is the doership. I feel I'm the doer. So when you talk, when I say, okay, these days we have iPhone 17, am I right? Which has just come into the market and there's a lot of fight going on. Am I right on the version iPhone 17?
There's a fight. I don't know.
At the store in Mumbai, there was, so we think, okay, and then we will go buying that phone and say, okay, I've got an iPhone 17, whatever is the latest version. Okay. So, what was, other than spending those lakhs of rupees, what was my contribution to the technology, to the device? We never pause to think. We are so proud of the fact that I own one. I was one of the first ones to own it, you see. So, we forget the hundreds and thousands of people who have contributed to the device that I'm so proud of today. So, even a simple task like stitching a button onto a shirt, someone made the button, someone made the needle, someone made the thread, which I am using to stitch the button onto my shirt. What was my contribution other than, okay, physically stitch, that's fine. But the needle, the thread, the button have been given to me, have been provided to me. I can go in the market and buy. I may not have contributed too much for towards the development of that particular object, but I'm using it. So when I say that I did this, we should always just pause and think how much of it is being done by us and how much of it is being done by others. And of course, we should never forget the Paramatman, which enables me to see the eye of the needle, the thread, the button, and tack up the whole thing. It's a very simple task, but I'm able to do it. Now, if we go back, you remember the when we are doing the Rajasic thing, of course, here we are in the Sattvic Gyan, the Rajasic was actually seeing differences, right? So it is our ego which is making us see differences distinct and superior to the rest of the creation, including mankind. So the ego is the problem here. Now the Sattvic Karta, in contrast, saw the oneness across the board and works with I am the one attitude. So the Sattvic Karta sees that that person is just a spoke in the wheel or part of the greater picture. And also, there is no ego because the sattvic understanding sees oneness, sees that everything is supported by God. Then we come to dhriti, firmness or steadiness. So for jnani, we had used the word sthairya, and for the bhakta, we had used dhruna nishchay. So dhriti is very important. It is firmness, consistency of purpose, goal, or an ideal. So it is the persistence to remain on the path till the goal is achieved. And one is not swayed by any obstacle or any problem that comes in the way. We continue steadfast or towards the goal. And this is a quality of the intellect. From the level of the intellect, we have to be consistent and determined actually to get uh, to reach the end of the goal that we have set out for ourselves. So this is important because liberty, or we are talking about moksha in this chapter, so liberation or self knowledge or God realization, these are goals which take time, and we have to have this quality, firmness, dhriti in us. Utsaha is of course enthusiasm, so we should be enthusiastic towards whatever work we have undertaken. Siddhya, Siddhyo, Nirvikar, that means unaffected by success and failure. These qualities were also there for both the Jnani and the Bhakta. So, see, success and failure is a life. I mean, just as night follows day and day follows night, that's the way success will follow failure and failure will follow success. So this is life. And the sattvic karta, coming from that sattvic knowledge, is above these dualities, is above likes, dislikes. And because he's above likes and dislikes, he or she is above the dualities, because this unaffected by success and failure is a result of detachment towards the world. So, okay, the person is unperturbed by life's reversals or when things don't go our way, and does not get unnecessarily excited when things do go our way. So that is the characteristic of a sattvic karta. So the sattvic karta at all times maintains a perfect balance within oneself through all that is changing in the external world. So there may be a hurricane outside, the sattvic karta is balanced, does the best that one can do in that situation to the best of one's ability. Because the such a doer is rooted in God and understands that these natural calamities or other fluctuations will happen and does not affect the mental equilibrium of the person. Also, here it is important that success and failure, when we look at it, is a result, an effect of what? Or is the fruit of action. Of what? Of the action that we are doing. So, success and failure is always in the future. This we have been trying to analyze when we were doing the karma part. So the sattvic karta consequently focuses on obligatory action being done well and does not worry about what will be the fruit of that action, what will be the result of the action. Of course, the underlying part is that the sattvic karta acts, and these people act for action's sake or work for work's sake, done in the spirit of service and sacrifice, seeing oneness across the creation. This part was covered in detail in chapters 3, 4, and 5. So a sattvic person has knowledge of the highest and therefore performs obligatory actions only. Let's move on to verse number 27. Ragi karma phala prepsu lupto hinsat kamo shuchi हर्ष शोकान्वित कर्ता rajasah parikirtitah. So the verse translates to passionate, desirous of fruits of action, greedy, harmful, impure, affected by joy and sorrow. Such an actor is called rajasic. So let's take this up word by word. Ragi is passionate. Karma, phal, prepsu. So karma, action, phal, fruit, prepsu, desirous. So karma, phal, prepsu becomes desirous of fruit of action. Lubdha is greedy. Hinsatmak, cruel, harmful. Shuchi is purity. And so Ashuchi becomes impure. Harsh, Shok, Anvit. So Harsh is happiness, Shok is sorrow, Anvit is moved by or affected by. So Harsh, Shok, Anvit becomes moved by joy and sorrow. Karta, actor, Rajas is the guna, Parikirtita is called. So passionate, desirous of fruits of action, greedy, harmful, impure, affected by joy and sorrow, such an actor is called Rajasic. So let's chant it together. Ragi karma phala prepsu lubdho hinsatmako shuchi harsha shokanvitah karta rajasah parikirtitah. So we now come to the Rajasic actor who is functioning from the uh, Rajasic Gyan, which believed in differences across the creation or saw the plurality of the world. And of course, that led to the Rajasic karma, which we just covered in the previous set of verses. So the Rajasic Karta is motivated by Rajasic Gyan. And again, see, the guna was covered in chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhag Yog. And we had talked about verse 7 actually talked about the rajas causes desires, rag, and rajogun is the source of trishna and attachments, right? And in verse number 12 of that chapter, we had covered the symptoms of rajas. The adjectives used were lobh or greed, pravriti, activity, then aram, karmanam is undertaking of works or enterprises, and restlessness and longing, spriha, or longing for worldly enjoyments. And at that point of time, we had seen how these qualities were interconnected. See, what happens is that lobe or greed or wanting something actually makes us active. So it motivates us to action. And the more greedy we get, the more active we are. Then activity, of course, this activity results in a lot of undertakings and feverish activity, and we are in frenzy over our duties and responsibilities, fever of doing and fever of making others do. And consequently, we are perpetually undertaking projects, so planning, doing the planning for the next thing that we are going to do, and this results in doership. And because we are desire working from the level of the desires, we want the desires to be fulfilled, so we are fruit oriented. So it all follows as a cycle. And then because we are fruit oriented, the fruit may come or not come, so we are mentally agitated, and we are remiss in the current action because we are worried about the future, or we are worried about the past when we act from the point of view of the likes and dislikes. So the current action is not great. So that is the way the right a rajasic person functions, believing I'm the principle, and all the world should cater to me. This is in direct contrast to the sattvic person's oneness principle, who sees the substratum of the ocean in the waves. The Rajasic sees the different waves. So the Rajasic person coming from this knowledge is though acting in the present, is continuously either slipping into the past or is worried about the future. So most of us actually function like this. So the characteristics that the verse is bringing out are of the Rajasic karta, uh, which are ragi, attached, because of our desires, passion, functioning on likes and dislikes, direct result of that. Karm phal prepsu, anxious for the fruit of action. Because as we've been saying, while engaged in the action, we are worried about the future. So, I'm studying just now. Now, what will come in the exam tomorrow? Okay, fine. Either I plan out and shock out that out of the I'll cover 60% of the course, which I've determined handles 80% of the paper. So fine. But when I'm studying, I should be focusing on that 60 or 80% that I have earmarked to study, right? So, but I'll be worried. I hope my assessment is correct, and that much. So many questions come from this part of the chapter, and so on and so forth. I'm wasting my energy. The time that I should have been spent concentrating on the chapter, I am worried about what will come in the paper, which is actually not in my hands at all. Someone else has designed that question paper for me. So when we are worried about the future, it leads to dissipation of energy, mental stress, and fatigue towards the present action. Lubdha, or greed, acquiring more and more. So we have two people in the family. I have cars standing in my driveway. My neighbor has six. I am not happy. I want to have more. So this is how we function. Desires are insatiable. The more we acquire, the more we want to acquire. And this applies for everything: name, wealth, power, fame. It's like a fire. If you remember the initial chapters, desire was uh, likened to a fire which consumes everything. And Mahatma Gandhi's famous quote: the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Which, those of you who've done the Ishopanishad, verse number 1, ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत् किंच जगत्याम जगत तेन त्यक्तेन भुंजितः मा गृधा कस्य स्विद्धनम. Grit is the word that was used there, which means greed. So what was that verse saying? That Ish, that God resides in everything that we see in and around us, living, non-living, moving, non-moving. Enjoy it, but don't be greedy. Whose wealth is it anyways? Right? So uh, I always, when the word greed comes, so grid was the word used there. Then the next adjective that we use here is hinsatmak. That means cruel. So again, this is a direct consequence about a person full of desires and passion. So the person is cruel how? He or she is not concerned about the other. So you're standing in a queue, you think that you are the only one who's important here. You will go ahead, push, shove, and move ahead. And so you're harmful, you're prone to causing harm, hurt to other people. So this is complete consequence of the knowledge, the rajasic gyan, which sees differences. So a rajasic person is blind to the amount of sorrow that the person is bringing to others, and is only concerned about his or her own immediate requirement, right? Shuchi is pure, and ashuchi becomes impure. It's actually, these are all the reversal of the qualities that we have been doing for the jnani and for the bhakta. So impurity is one at the level of the physical level. Most of us are not impure at that level. So we keep ourselves, our homes and environment clean to the best of our ability. But at the mental level and the intellectual level, we tend to have negative thoughts. We tend to analyze negatively. So, the root of this is the desires, and selfish desires, impure. The pure feelings are also converted to impure feelings. So, selfish love makes the pure love, or which is actually a sattvic quality, into obsession, which becomes rajasic, and can also become tamasic when we start functioning from the level of the delusion, when we are just at it only for ourselves, right? So the mental impurities are uh, what cover the pure within reality within us, and so this is ashuchi. Harsh Shokanvid. So I think this we covered with the Satvik, that a person who is not moved by joy and sorrow or success and failure, a Rajasic person is really affected by joy and sorrow. And success, we have that famous saying again: whatever goes down, goes up will come down. So be nice to the people on the way up, because you'll meet them on your way down. So life is full of dualities, but a Rajasik Karta is caught up in these dualities, these likes and dislikes. And this is because of the attachment to the world. So the person is affected by life's reversals, goes into depression if things don't go one's way, and is, again, in happiness is also out of control. So now, in the comparison, when the external world is fluctuating, unlike the sattvic karta, who remains poised and balanced, a rajasic karta is always affected and is going like a ping pong ball, as the external world is fluctuating. So when we observe ourselves, that we are, vacillating between happiness and sorrow and success and failure, we should pause and do a correction within ourselves and try to go beyond the rajas and move on to sattva. I'll move on to verse number 28. Ayukta prakrita stabdha shato nashkriti kolasah विषादी दीर्घसूत्री च कर्ता तामस उच्यते. Unsteady, vulgar, stubborn, deceptive, malicious, lazy, and procrastinating. Such an actor is called tamasic. So let's take this up word by word. Ayukta. Yukta is able, one who's capable. Ayukta becomes incapable or uh, and also unsteady, not hooked on to a line of action or to a goal. Prakrita is vulgar, Stabd is stubborn, Shat is deceptive or, cheating. Nashkrita is malicious, having ill will. Alas is lazy. Vishadi is despondent or depressed. Dirgh Sutri is always delaying, procrastinating. Cha and Karta actor, Tamas is Gun, Uchyate is called. So, unsteady, vulgar, stubborn, deceptive, malicious, lazy, and procrastinating. Such an actor is called tamasic. So, let's chant it together. अयुक्त प्राकृत स्तब्धा शठो नैष्कृत कोलसा विषादी दीर्घसूत्री च कर्ता तामस उच्यते. So, see, tamasic understanding was without reason. If you remember verse 22 of this chapter, without reason, illogical, with no basis in truth, and superficial. And of course, we had done in chapter 14, verse number 13, that the guna tamas, the hallmarks of that gun was dullness, inertia, heedlessness, and delusion, right? And the gyan we saw in this chapter, that the tamasic clings to the part and interprets it to be the whole. So the tamasic karta is a result of all this. The tamasic gyan, the tamasic gun, and therefore performs tamasic karma, right? So what is happening? When we are in tamas, when that quality is predominant in us, we are functioning from delusion or confusion and without consideration of what the action will bring. Is it the correct action or not? We are not bothered. So the doer in us is tamasic when we are ayukta, not united, unsteady. So we are not consistent in pursuing a course of action. We are moved by whims and fancies. We are aimless. So sometime we'll go to the left, sometime we'll go to the right, hoping to go straight. So we just aimless. We don't pursue anything. Vulgar. Prakrit is vulgar. So in our thoughts, words, and deed, we lack culture and refinement. We go around abusing people, crude acts, indecent talk, coming from the low-based thoughts. Stabdha is stubborn, unmoving. We are obstinately attached to our own point of view, not yielding to any logic that is being or reasoning that is being put forth in front of us. We will not listen to that. We'll say, this is what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter. Shato is deceptive, deceitful, misleading, cheating. Nashkrita is malicious, intending evil and harm, expressing spite and hatred. Alas is lazy, no inclination to work, idler, lack of effort, even giving up our obligatory duties. Vishadi is despondent, Again, a direct result of being lazy. So when you don't work, naturally you will become pessimistic, depressed, despaired. This is a direct result of being lazy. Dirk Sutri, always delaying things. Why make the bed in the morning? It doesn't matter. I've got the whole day to do it. By the time it's evening, then you say, what's the point? In any case, I'm going back to bed. No, so we'll forget it. So that is what a tamasic person is. Is it okay if I do the next verse just now? Because actually it's a fallout of other things. Is it okay with everyone?
Yes, it's okay with me.
Okay. Because we've covered most of the attributes. So let me just do it. 29th verse I'll do. बोधेरभेदं धृतश्चैव गुणस्त्रिविधं शृणु प्रोचयामनाशेषेण पृथक्त्वेन धनञ्जयः. So this is actually a start of the new topic, but it is completely related to what we have discussed. That's why I wanted to cover this verse. The verse translates to the threefold division of intellect or buddhi and steadfastness, dhriti, according to the gunas, fully and distinctly hear, O Dhananjaya. So, word by word, buddhi is intellect. So, buddhe becomes of intellect. Bhedam is division. Dhrite, again, of dhriti, so of firmness. Cha and ev even. Gunatah, from gunas. Trividham, threefold. Shrinu, listen. Procha, sanam, is being declared. And asheshen, without anything remaining, so completely. Prathaktven, distinctly, bringing out all the differences. Dhananjay is a name for Arjun, meaning the winner of the well. So the threefold division of intellect, buddhi, and steadfastness, dhriti, according to the gunas, fully and distinctly hear, O Dhananjaya. So let's chant it together. बुद्धिरभेदं धृतेश्चैव गुणात्रस्त्रिविधं शृणु प्रोच्यमानमशेषेण पृथक्त्वेन धनञ्जय. So, see, in the previous 9 verses, we have understood how Gyan or knowledge, karm, action, and karta, actor, they all follow the threefold division of sattva, rajas, and tamas. How an actor is guided in the world based on his knowledge and performs karm, action in the world. This verse is detailing the action, the understanding of action actually is helping us understand action in greater detail. So, is presenting a detailed analysis of action, which is essential in order for us to live our lives, and not only live our lives but to enjoy our life. So, basically, we should be well equipped to handle the challenges of life. See, it's like any sport you take. So let's say surfing you take. So the person is riding the ocean waves. Once you skill, the master the art, then you enjoy riding the waves. It becomes a sport. You enjoy living. But a person who is not skilled, a skilled surfer, or even knows how to hold the surfboard, will dread the thought of being thrown into the ocean, right? So just as a skillful surfer enjoys the waves, going up and down that ocean waves, the person enjoys that, and it's a sport for that person. For another person, it's a nightmare, right? So similarly, if we know how to handle life, how to manage ourselves as life is throwing these, joy and sorrow, success and failure at us like waves, we will be able to enjoy life actually. We will be able to handle these waves of the pairs of opposites, and we will be well equipped to manage and resolve these waves. So, what is required for that? That we should be able to understand any situation com- properly. Firstly, we should be able to understand, comprehend the situation, and then accordingly, we should act. So, the action should be proportionate or appropriate to the situation that is coming in front of us. So, for the right action, right understanding is required. And that is what we have been stressing on in the previous set of three verses. When we were talking of the karta, it was coming from the understanding. So that's why we were always talking about the sattvic knowledge leading to the sattvic karta doing the sattvic karma, right? So that was the sequence. And so what is happening? This, when we are moving about in the world, experiences are presenting themselves in front of us. So everyone is looking at a tree, everyone is sitting under the tree, but we process this, whatever is happening around us, in different manners. So same information or same incident will be processed differently by different intellects, you know. So for example, the classic example of the apple falling on Newton's head, that opened a whole range of new scientific theories for one person. For another, most of us, in fact, we would simply pick up the apple, rub it clean, and consume it. And for an odd one, maybe the person would not even bother to get up and do anything about it, right? So, how we process the information depends upon our understanding. Another example I would like to bring forth is a good doctor. So, when you have an ailment, you go to a doctor, and then you want to go to a good doctor. Why? Because the doctor is able to diagnose the ailment based on his experience, ability, and observation, and will request for very few tests, if at all. A not so good doctor may require n number of tests to reach the same diagnosis, or maybe even a wrong diagnosis. So this ailment is the same. How a good doctor interprets it and how a bad doctor interprets it, or incompetent doctor interprets it, that is the difference in the intellects. So what this verse is saying, that the two important factors which are required for every action. So the every action is guided and controlled by these two components, which is buddhi or intellect, and dhriti or firmness, will or fortitude, right? So what is buddhi? Buddhi is our ability to grasp what is happening around us, and our intellectual capacity of understanding, discriminating, and choosing a course of action for ourselves. So discrimination is again a fallout of the buddhi that helps us distinguish between right and wrong, and it is used. This is what determines in the gaining of knowledge, gyan. That is buddhi. Dhriti, we have been talking it as a quality in the verses that we covered today for the sattvic karta. Firmness, will, fortitude. Again, the faithful consistency. This is almost, I'm repeating, but never mind. I think it's a good idea to repeat, because these are the qualities that we must inculcate in us. The consistency of purpose and self application, the determined effort and the determination actually to keep our entire body, so that is physical body, mind, and intellect, focused towards a particular goal. And it translates to the faculty of constantly keeping the idea in the mind and working on it till it reaches its logical conclusion without wavering, or without allowing ourselves to be moving around like a leaf in the breeze. We should just be focused and determined to finish that particular task, that or goal that we have undertaken. This is a quality of the intellect. And it was one of the qualities which was not only mentioned for the sattvic karta, but was also a quality of the bhakta and the jnani. So these two factors impact the quality and the quantity of action. And they not only propel action, but they also direct and control the action. So they affect our entire human personality, because the buddhi and the steadfastness, dhriti, are required to complete any action. And that is why they have been included in this verse in the detailed concept of action. And in the next set of verses, we will be talking about how buddhi, intellect, and dhriti, firmness, also follows the threefold division of gunas. So, with that, we'll conclude today's session.